Today, I'm going to talk about lithium batteries and their pertinence to resource adequacy. Lithium batteries are being touted as the answer to saving the grid while saving the planet. A battery is a device that stores chemical energy and converts it to electricity, which is energy produced by the flow of electrons from one electrode, the negative anode, to another, the positive cathode. The anode and cathode are typically different types of metals or other chemical compounds. Interactions of the anode with electrolytes causes the chemical reaction that produces, stores, then passes electrolytes to the cathode. An electrolyte can be a liquid gel or solid, but it must be able to allow the movement of charged ions. The external wire provides the pathway for the flow of negatively charged electrons. The electrolyte provides the path for transfer of positively charged ions to balance the negative flow. I love history. In 1800, Alessandro Volta invented the first battery, which came to be known as the voltaic pile. The voltaic pile consisted of pairs of copper and zinc discs piled on top of each other, separated by a layer of cloth soaked in heavily salted water. Batteries power our personal electronics, phones, computers, cars, power tools, hearing aids, and so on. Different types of batteries vary in chemistry to suit variable applications. Lead acid for our car batteries, alkaline for the Walkman and various toys. The other types of batteries, sodium or silicon ion. Sodium ion batteries have been worked on for about 50 years. They haven't gotten that to work very well. Redox flow is another one they're working on. They're even working on one that is urine powered. But none of these have taken the lion's share like lithium-ion batteries. Lithium-ion batteries are rechargeable and used in vaping devices, hearing aids, cell phones, tablets, laptops, e-bikes, hoverboards, scooters, cars, small and large appliances, handheld power tools, solar power backup storage. Why lithium-ion batteries? Compared to lead and alkaline batteries, lithium is small and light. It has greater density, so more power per size. Greater efficiency, which means longer lasting. Higher voltage capacity. Lithium-ion batteries include lithium cobalt oxide. This was the first one developed. It has the greatest energy density of lithium batteries, making it ideal for small items. This form of lithium battery has been in use since 1991, and we rely on these. Is there a downside? The disadvantage of this type of lithium battery is thermal instability. At high temperatures, the cobalt oxide cathode can decompose, producing oxygen that with high heat can cause to and prolong a fire. Concerns about lithium batteries were demonstrated in the FAA rules for traveling with lithium batteries. These are the guidelines from 2020. Spare, uninstalled lithium metal batteries and lithium-ion batteries, electronic cigarettes, and vaping devices must be removed from the baggage and kept with the passenger in the aircraft cabin. Even in carry-on baggage, these items should be protected from damage, accidental activation, and short circuit. I hope to adequately demonstrate why the FAA has such strict rules for lithium batteries with some headlines. E-cigarette smoker's vape lithium battery explodes in his pocket, leaving him needing a skin graft. The internet is replete with images and reports of lithium battery fires, including some explosive fires. I'll go through these fairly quickly. Scooter lithium battery investigated as cause of five-alarm Bronx blaze, fire department says. The scooter was on top of the building when it ignited. Electric skateboard explodes into flames and nearly kills a 12-year-old girl and her family as she charged it in her bedroom while she slept. E-bike batteries raise safety concerns amid rise in fires. Headline, as e-bikes proliferate, so do deadly fires blamed on exploding lithium-ion batteries. The rise in fires is from the rise in purchases, it appears. Another headline, fire that killed 4 at New York City e-bike store was caused by lithium-ion batteries, the fire commissioner says. E-bike explosion leaves dad and daughter in critical condition. E-bike explosion kills 60-year-old rider. Headline, fire brigade called after e-bike bursts into flames in traffic. If you look at the rows of batteries on these bikes, this is not like a hearing aid battery or even your laptop batteries. These are rows and rows of these batteries on the bike. And this is what those stores of batteries look like before they explode. Headline, 4, including baby, taken to hospital after e-bike battery explodes. Headline, GM warns some Bolt EV owners, don't park them inside or charge them unattended overnight. GM and NHTSA announced a recall of nearly 69,000 Bolt EVs from the 2017-2019 model years in November. Headlines, firefighters dunk smoking $150,000 electrified BMW in tank of liquid. Liquid fires are hard to extinguish for reasons I'll get into in a little bit. Remember the electric car fires during Hurricane Ian, September 2022? Headline, overcharged batteries eyed in Boeing Dreamline fires. The charred insides of the plane's lithium-ion battery showed the battery received voltage in excess of its design limits. So this was in 2013. So the risks of fires and explosions have been going on for a long time. We hear more now because there are more electric vehicles out there. In 2015, there were 500,000 electric vehicles. 2019, 1,400,000. 2021 estimated 2 million, 2022 estimated 2.2 million, and it's predicted by 2050 there will be 200 million or more. So it is, I think, predictable that these electric vehicle fires and explosions will continue to escalate. And what about the increase in battery storage that will be needed for increased electrification? Here's an article about the fire at the largest battery storage facility in the United States, Moss Landing, California, 2022. There were 2 of these fires, at least 2 of them, within a short period of time. The title of the article is Battery Fired at Moss Landing, a stark reminder of new technology risks. Here's some quotes from the paper. The mega battery that caught fire is one of 256 Tesla batteries. The fire burned out 5 hours after it was first reported, but it continued to smolder, raising concerns the lithium-ion batteries might be releasing toxins into the air. Here's another quote. The fire's out, but the incident raises questions about California's electric grid and the drive to move away from fossil fuels to combat climate change. PG&E and other utilities have been installing large-scale batteries to back up renewable energy sources to ensure power can still be provided once the sun goes down. But batteries, we're learning, can have their own reliability issues. In Tuesday's Moss Landing event, the site had to be disconnected from the grid. Now, this was a news story from last week. I scan and read portions of 7 newspapers every morning, including 5 Montana papers, but this wasn't covered in any of the Montana papers I read, even though this was an AP article. I only saw it in Reuters, and it was also on the news, the TV stations. So these photos and this news was available to us, but difficult to find. And there were over 3,000 cars on that ship. And you could see it would be a total loss. And this recent cargo ship lithium battery fire wasn't the first by any means. Headline, it's been exactly once a year since the Felicity Ace caught fire with nearly 4,000 cars on board. As a result of this particular fire, some auto shipping companies have refused to use electric vehicle optimizing to lose that business instead of risking a potentially devastating fire. Why are lithium batteries more of a fire hazard than other batteries? Why do they burn so hot and for so long? And why are they hard to extinguish? And why do they explode? All batteries generate heat and have flammable components. What is different about lithium batteries? They are smaller with more fragile components. Because of what they are used for, key components are extremely small and lightweight. Thin partitions are fragile, and if punctured or pierced, a spark may occur that starts a fire. The positively charged cathode contains oxygen in the most common lithium batteries. Stresses such as internal short circuit, excessive heat, physical trauma, excessive pressure, overcharging, these things may result in release of oxygen from the cathode. Thus, lithium-ion batteries may not only catch fire, but are also able to sustain that fire through internal oxygen and electrolyte organic solvents that can act as fuel. As the heat of the fire increases, a process called thermal runaway can begin, wherein heat generated inside the battery exceeds the amount that is dispersed elsewhere and can spread to other batteries in the pack or explode. In intense heat, the flammable electrolyte, along with flammable gases such as hydrogen, methane, carbon monoxide, and hydrofluoric acid, may be released to cause explosions. Can we make lithium batteries safer? Creating safer lithium batteries has been in the works for some time now. Lithium iron phosphate is one of the main contenders. Oxygen atoms are more tightly bound, providing better thermal stability to cope with high temperatures. They have a longer cycle life, 3 to 4 times longer lasting. They can be discharged and charged many times. Disadvantages, they're more expensive. They have a higher self-discharge rate. They have a lower energy density, lower voltage than lithium cobalt, so the batteries must be proportionally larger. Lithium iron phosphate, they have been used since 1996. Some articles say that lithium iron phosphate batteries are perfectly safe. Others say that the level of safety depends on the form. And if it depends on the form, obviously it's not perfectly safe. Either way, lithium iron phosphate has been used since 1996, and lithium fires and explosions go on. Including an uptick in the last 3 years. So think about it. Lithium iron phosphate available since 1996, and the fires continue to increase. It is thought that if we increase the lithium iron phosphate, that there will be less fires, but that hasn't really proven to be so. As you can look at these graphs that talk about the amount of the initial one, and then the one with lithium iron, and you could see they were used during these times of increased fires. They've been used approximately the same, and they incur more expense. So they may be safer, but how safe remains unclear. Lithium car and truck batteries are heavy and expensive. Starter batteries are 25 to 40 pounds, similar to our lead car batteries, but that isn't all you need. The electric vehicle car battery is typically over 1,000 pounds. The EV truck battery over 1,600 pounds. The cost, $10,000 to $40,000 typically, depending on if it's a car or a truck. And if you extrapolate from that, if the buses are equivalent, it would be probably somewhere $100,000 to $200,000 to replace the battery on one of those electric buses. There are environmental and supply issues for lithium. As with the number of fires and explosions, supply and environmental problems are becoming more clear the more prevalent the use of lithium electric vehicles. The rapid deployment of solar and wind power has brought a significant increase in demand for minerals, including and especially lithium. Specific minerals predominate depending on the type of electrical generation and storage and transmission. Solar photovoltaic, primarily copper, aluminum, and silicon. Wind, primarily copper, rare earths, zinc, aluminum, chromium, and nickel. Electricity networks, primarily copper and aluminum. Electric vehicles and lithium batteries. Storage, copper, cobalt, nickel, rare earths, aluminum, and lithium. Lithium amounts are needed much more in electric vehicles compared to conventional cars per kilowatt hour. Then there are the national and mineral security issues that I talked about in my mining talk. Most extraction and processing of lithium is in China. Very little is in the United States. And in the United States, extraction and processing bring greater expense, which means electricity is going to cost more to the ratepayer. The reason for the greater expense, I think primarily, is because we have standards for work conditions and impact on the environment. If these batteries were made in the United States, they from mining to production, those $10,000 to $40,000 batteries would certainly cost much more. Then there's the environmental issue of mining. These are all pictures of lithium mines. You could see from that last picture, especially if you compare it to the size of the buildings, you get an idea of how huge these mines are. And that's a lithium, those are lithium lakes, they call them. There you get an idea looking at that large petroleum run piece of machinery, how large that particular mine is, that particular lithium mine. In addition to lithium, other minerals are needed for electric vehicle batteries: manganese, graphite, nickel. That's not steel, but it's iron ore that we use to make steel, and cobalt. So manganese mine, graphite mine, nickel, iron ore plus processing, and cobalt. The mines all look about the same. They include massive use of land, water, human toil, and petroleum products. I want to talk a little bit more about mining cobalt. Cobalt is considered the highest material supply chain risk for electric vehicles and their batteries. EV batteries can have up to 20 kilograms of cobalt in each pack. Cobalt is mined as a secondary material from mixed nickel and copper ores, making new recovery projects expensive. The United States does not have large reserves for cobalt. 70% plus comes from the Congo, the rest from China and Saudi Arabia. So there's clearly a national security risk as well as supply chain risk with cobalt. Cobalt is the prettiest of these minerals used in lithium batteries, in my opinion. But the photos of cobalt mining haunt me. Again, 70% plus of cobalt mining is done in the Congo. They obviously don't have standards in the Congo for the treatment of humans. I can't verify that this is actually a picture taken from those mines, this particular picture, but the rest of them are definitely from those mines. The battery pack of the electric vehicle is a feat of intricate engineering. Thousands of cylindrical cells with components sourced from around the world. That's what it looks like when they burn up. And if it ends up in a landfill, its cells can release toxins. If punctured, they can catch fire and potentially explode. I trust we've come a long way since the battery disposal techniques of the 1950s to 1990s. This was a headline brought to my attention by a patient of mine. Coast Guard faces suit over toxic batteries it dumped in lakes and rivers. This was 1998. This article published in the New York Times. The United States Coast Guard, responsible for policing the nation's navigable waterways, has for decades dumped toxic batteries into rivers and lakes and has only half-heartedly tried to clean up the mess. That's a quote from the article. The patient of mine who showed me this article about the United States Coast Guard debacle, he said to me, the Coast Guard is part of our government. You really think they'll do a better job this time around? So what about lithium recycling? This was an article. Lithium costs a lot of money, so why aren't we recycling lithium batteries? Part of the issue, it's extremely expensive, extremely complicated, with a questionable value of yield. Anything can be recycled, but is it worth it? Plus, disposal is dangerous. This is an article in the BBC in 2020 called The Explosive Problem of Zombie Batteries. This was the photo they included, an explosion, and they actually showed a video of the explosion and the workers fleeing for their lives. So these are photos of recycling lithium battery recycling explosions. And this was something, until I did the research for this particular talk, I had never seen headlines, information, or photos about this. This was an article written by the Sierra Club. Clean power at a steep price. Shows one of those lithium lakes or lithium baths. This is from the article. It's an increasingly familiar dilemma. Extracting the metals and minerals we need to avoid the worst catastrophes of climate change creates a different set of catastrophes. This is in the article. In Indonesia, rainforests are being razed for nickel. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, children toil in cobalt mines. And lithium extraction sows havoc the world over. Brine operations in Argentina have reportedly contaminated streams that irrigate food crops. Leaks from Chinese hard rock lithium mining turned a river so toxic that it killed not only fish, but also the cows and yaks that drank from it. Last January, a proposed lithium mine in Serbia was scrapped in the face of ferocious street protests. Native American tribes, ranchers, and environmental activists are fighting an enormous hard rock operation slated to open soon at Thacker Pass, Nevada, arguing that it will desecrate sacred indigenous lands and clobber the local ecosystem. So I think it's important to pause and ponder this, and I have great appreciation for the honesty of this particular reporter and her delving into the complexity of this. Again, there's no free lunch. Lithium batteries are expensive. Lithium batteries catch fire and explode. Lithium extraction and processing are done primarily in China. This creates national security and supply chain concerns. Lithium from mining to battery disposal is extremely hazardous to the environment. And that entire process from mining it to the disposal of its batteries. So the Sierra Club author, whose article I appreciate very much, she said, but we need to get this stuff from somewhere, talking about lithium. So the question is, how can we save ourselves from climate change without destroying places like the Atacama, which is what the article was about? I'm totally with the Sierra Club on this one, but I would add, how can we claim to be fighting climate change when the solar and wind generation, electric vehicles, and EV charging stations are wreaking havoc in the environment elsewhere in the world? This photo, if you look at the size of that man, probably a large man. This is the CAT 994H. It burns 1,800 gallons of fuel, that's petroleum product, in a 12-hour shift. This machine is required to move 500,000 pounds of earth in order to get the minerals needed for one single Tesla battery. Mining the lithium needed for energy, for the transition, for energy transition, what I prefer to call energy expansion, requires petroleum and carries great cost to local air, land, water, and people. To be wise and just stewards of resources and honest protectors of environment and people, that must include protection of those afar. In our policymaking, we must address what is being called the dirty trade fueling our clean energy. We must honestly address what's being called the blood diamond colonial model of business, currently used for the Green New Deal. So lithium batteries, their pertinence to resource adequacy. I think it's clear we cannot count on these marvels of ingenuity and technology to save the planet or stabilize the grid. Thank you.